The silence of space is not like the silence, not the absence of sound in an empty room or a forest at midnight. It is an absolute, physical, total absence. No medium for sound, no air, no vibration, no connection between you and anything else that exists. Imagine being the first person to leave the Earth, looking through a small capsule window, watching the blue planet receding below you, the curvature of the horizon becoming visible, the darkness of space opening in every direction around a metal bubble, centimeters thick, separating your body from the vacuum. Then realizing no training could have prepared you. No one on that planet knows you are here, and no one is coming to bring you back. The space race between the US and Soviet Union is narrated as a great human achievement, an epic competition that pushed limits toward the stars. But that narrative has a convenient characteristic. It begins at moments of success, with Gagarin smiling, triumphant radio transmissions, parades. What happened before, what was necessary, what was lost and erased along the way. That part of the story stayed locked for decades behind the Iron Curtain, and part of it may never have fully come out from there. The Soviet system had a particular relationship with failure, different from any other. In the Soviet Union, failure was not merely an unfortunate consequence of ambitious attempts. It was evidence of sabotage, criminal incompetence, or ideological betrayal. Engineers whose projects failed could be prosecuted. Scientists could disappear. Admitting error was indistinguishable from confessing a crime. The only response was to erase it, not learn from it, not document it, not use it as data. Erase it from history, from records, and when necessary, from the physical existence of people. It is in this context that the theory of the lost cosmonauts needs to be understood, not as a conspiracy in the dramatic sense, but as the natural result of a system that had transformed the cover-up into an institutional reflex. If test pilots died during initial stages, and physics made that statistically almost certain, then the system had only one response. Those pilots never existed. No investigation, no family notified, no records altered because there were no records. The erasure was total because it began before any documentation was created. Achille and Giovanni Battista Giudica Cordiglia were Italian brothers from Turin. In the late 50s, they built a radio listening station in their backyard, Toribert. Amateurs driven by curiosity and the obsession the space age had awakened. With equipment they built, they intercepted transmissions from Soviet and American satellites. Between 1960 and 1964, they recorded a series of transmissions. They believed these came from unannounced Soviet space missions. Some were telemetry signals. Others were more disturbing. In November 1960, they recorded heartbeats from space. The silence of a heart that beats no more. In February 1961, the brothers recorded another transmission. This time, breathing, labored, irregular. The breathing pattern of someone in extreme distress or oxygen deprivation, captured with enough clarity that the biological nature of the sound was undeniable. The transmission lasted a few minutes and then ceased abruptly. No Soviet communique, no acknowledgement of any kind that could be connected to what the brothers had heard. If the vastness of space and the secrets that government buried fascinate and terrify you, hit that like button right now. What comes next is the most disturbing recording the Giudica Cordiglia brothers ever produced, and it is the part of the story that the Soviet Union never admitted, and that time has not been able to fully describe. In May 1961, 3 weeks after Yuri Gagarin's flight, the brothers captured a voice transmission. It was a female voice, transmitting in Russian, describing an emergency situation. The voice said the capsule was heating up, flames visible outside the window. Systems were failing. The voice asked, repeatedly, if anyone in the world was listening. It was not a distress call in technical code. It was a direct human question, formulated with the specific urgency of someone understanding the answer might be no. The transmission lasted several minutes. The heat described corresponded to uncontrolled re-entry. The capsule was burning, and the person inside it was conscious while it happened. The recording exists, available in public archives for decades. Audio analysis confirmed it. What does not exist in any Soviet declassified archive is any record of a female who conducted a mission in May 1961. Valentina Tereshkova made her flight in June 1963, more than 2 years later. The space between those dates is filled by specific silence of archives organized to not contain certain information. The process known as unmasking was documented with photographic evidence. Official Soviet photographs were compared between different versions. Figures present in an earlier version had disappeared in later versions, replaced by background, or simply removed with photo retouching technique. Soviet laboratories developed with sophistication, appreciated when archives opened after 19. Cosmonaut Grigory Nelyubov is one of the most documented cases. He was part of the original group, trained alongside Gagarin. He appears in photographs, and then he disappears, removed from official photographs after being expelled. For reasons records describe in vague terms, reintegrated into air service, and dead years later. Under circumstances his family considered suspicious. Nelyubov was erased for disciplinary reasons. The question is about how many others were erased for reasons not documented. There is a dimension of the lost cosmonauts theory that goes beyond politics and conspiracy, and touches something more fundamental about the human condition and dying completely alone. If any of those pilots died in orbit, if a capsule lost its re-entry trajectory and continued orbiting the Earth instead of returning, then that person became something no human funerary tradition had ever anticipated. Not a buried body, not dispersed ashes. A satellite, an object in orbit following the same physical laws that govern the moon, completing one revolution every 90 minutes, crossing skies over every nation, over every ocean, over every person who looks up at night without knowing. The low Earth orbit is not indefinitely stable. Residual atmospheric resistance degrades orbits until the object re-enters the atmosphere and disintegrates. That process can take weeks or months. If any cosmonaut died in orbit, their tomb eventually descended from the sky and disintegrated in flames over some point on the planet, invisible, without ceremony, with no one who knew what they were witnessing. The Soviet archives, partially opened after the collapse, revealed much, but selectively, as archives organized by people who knew that part of what was inside was better left unfound. Researchers describe consulting those archives as trying to reconstruct a book from which pages have been systematically removed. Enough to confirm there was more, but not enough to fully reveal what the more was. Yuri Gagarin smiled for the cameras in April 1961. The face of human achievement. He was brave, genuine, and what he did demanded courage, not diminished by questions. But Gagarin's smile and the silence behind it are two faces of the same coin. The face history showed and the face it kept turned downward. In a race where winning was the only metric, admitting losses was strategic weakness. The question of what was sacrificed to make that smile possible is unanswered. And in space, in the absolute silence where no sound can travel, that question does not echo. It simply floats. If you want to keep uncovering secrets, subscribe to Shadow AI. Hit the notification bell. And before you go, leave your answer in the comments below. Do you believe those cosmonauts were sacrificed? Or are those recordings just legends? Read through the comments, because in this kind of mystery, what people choose to believe says a great deal about how much we still trust the versions that governments build.